Hey guys, it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets and welcome to another crafty video. So as you can see here, I have 4 pieces of cardstock that are already inked up with Distress ink and one that is not. We are going to be working on this one from start to finish. I did these ones off to the side because it was just easier to do the first layer, but I want to show you the whole process with this one. I'm going to show you the samples that I did earlier, and then there's also going to be another one that I started to do a little bit of it, but I want to show you it to you in a little bit of a different way. So I'm going to show you the supplies that we're going to use and the different ways that you can create a wood grain background. So it's completely up to you how you want the background to look and what you're doing it for. So sometimes it may be for a tree, sometimes it may be for a like a floor or a stage, and you'll want them to look different. So giving you just a bunch of different options. So this is the Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous stencil, and I used right here with this one. Actually, I think I had it turned upside down. So I used this one to create this. Now, for the background, this is actually a white piece of cardstock. I used some antique linen for all of the backgrounds of this. We're actually going to use the tea dye, which is what I ink this up with, as the base layer. You can use either one. You can go darker if you wanted a darker background. You can actually start with Vintage Photo or Gathered Twigs or any of the other ones. But this is what I started with here. So that's the stencil. And we're going to go through and make these. So I'll show you exactly how to do it from start to finish. So this is the Tim Holtz Alterations Sizzix 3D embossing folders, and it is a thicker embossing folder. You can feel it. It is, if you actually felt it in person, you would see that there's all kinds of, it's raised and lowered, and then it's kind of got like a mid-tone, like a midway point in some of these pieces here, and this is so cool. This one came out, I love the way this floor came out. So I kind of used, here's the tea dye on the back. I used several different colors here. You really can't see the initial antique linen on this one because I did a couple different techniques with that, and we'll talk through that as we go through. This is from the Paper Studio embossing folder, and it's got some tea dye, or not tea dye, antique linen on it, and it also has some Vintage Photo. There's a little bit of walnut stain, but I didn't really want to do that. And then I used the back. This one is, so you get an embossed and a debossed side when you put these in there. So I kind of did something on both sides. So this is actually this is tea dye, on this side is the antique linen, and then I did a dragging technique on top of it with the walnut stain, so it gives it a darker. So we'll talk about the dragging technique and how you can do that. And then this last one is the Doris embossing folder. So this one has the knots in it, kind of like the stencil did. So I just picked a piece in here. And then this one is probably my least favorite, but it's because I know what I did. I did the dragging technique here, and I did a little bit too much of it. So I tried to go over it a little bit to soften it up with some tea dye Distress ink, but didn't really work. So the antique linen is in the background. There's a little bit of tea dye in here. There's some walnut stain, and there's some Vintage Photo in this. So you can kind of see all of the different colors that are in this. So let's get started, and I'm gonna go start to finish on this one. So this will be the other technique that I didn't show in the beginning. So off to the side, I have 4 pieces of cardstock that is already inked up with the tea dye Distress ink. And then I'm going to be using one of these brushes. This is I don't think this is the Duramy. This is the young one. If you go back to, I think it's the video before this or 1 or 2 before this, you'll see what these brushes are, and I don't think I have them on the handles. These are amazing. I'm actually really, really loving these. Just trying to remember kind of to go same thing as the blending tools, to go off on the side and before I start, and don't go right to the paper. With the lighter colors, it's not as big of a deal, but once you start getting the darker colors in there, it becomes a little bit more difficult to blend out, and that's probably because it's the paper that I'm using. I'm using on the cheaper side cardstock from Michael's that just that like 100 or the is it like 65, 85 pound white generic cardstock. So you can put as much color on as you want. when you're doing these, but I kind of generally put on the same exact amount for everything. Some of them are a little bit lighter in areas. So we're gonna do 5 different backgrounds, different wood grain backgrounds. So the first one that we're gonna do, and these all start out with some tea dye distress ink. The first one that we're going to do is with a scoring board. So you're going to put your scoring board down, and you can do this however you would like to. You can start kind of wherever you want, but I generally start in the corner here, and I just pick my measurements. So this is like 2 and an eighth. So you can have the planks going any way you want. So this is 3 3/4. So I'm actually going to do it on this side because it's a little bit easier just measurement wise. So we're kind of going to go every 1/2 inch and do planks. So that's actually quarter. You can make the measurements as wide or as narrow as you would like. And I'm just scoring the back of this. And I'll show you why in a minute. So you're just gonna do, and then I'm gonna turn this around, and you're gonna score right here. So this is gonna have a little bit of a uneven thing at the end. So it's just because of the measurements of it. So I've scored basically every 1/2 inch. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my paper the other way, and I'm going to create the planks. So if you can see on this paper, see how the top is scored. Now I'm gonna go do the short side and just now bring my scoring tool down to that first score line. And I'll probably do it like every inch, and then just kind of go in the middle, and I'm just gonna find a groove to go into and just make sure that the score lines, let's see, can you see that in between those 2 lines? Just keep creating like that. So now what you can do is, if you're already in that groove, then pick it up, down, and just do every other one from one line to the next. That might be the easiest thing to do since you're already in the groove. Kind of pick it up, go down, and then this one is just right in the middle, right in the middle, and right in the middle here. All right, so now you have a scored background. So since you have these are raised, so what you're gonna wanna do, and it works better on a larger piece of paper. This is just kind of to test this out and show you guys the, what it would look like. I'll try to get some of the light out of here so it's not so white. Okay, so now what you can do is pick another color of distress ink, distress oxide. You can probably do this, I would assume you could do this with dye inks as well. So we're gonna kind of take it off to the side, and you're just gonna kind of want to go over the areas that have that embossing. You can go over the whole thing. You could do as much as you want. Just kind of keep it so that there's some lighter and some darker. And see, this again, this is because I kind of forgot to tap the brush off to the side. I got a little bit too much ink there. This will probably be the most subtle of all, and you may think it may not look as much like wood grain. Now, this would be great for bricks. You could do this, and you could do different colors of bricks, like a red, and then do a light red, and then a dark red over this. And it just kind of makes, when you go over this, it makes the bricks, or the embossing stand out. So you have like a 2-toned effect on there. So it has multiple colors in there, and you could, if you really wanted to, there are thinner brushes. Like I could probably have actually taken this thin brush and just gone over this and just went over. If I do that, it really, really, really makes the lines stand out versus the rest of it. You can see that. So that is, so you can do that. You can use this for wood grain. It's kind of just, it kind of gets in the groove of the back. Now you could also do the back too. So just trying to see here. You can kind of make it go into the grooves. So you can have it be, you know, you could do either way. You could do the, let's try. Let's see, this might have some of the tea dye ink on it still too. So you can do that. That's just one option for a background. So there is the embossing. If you don't have any embossing folders, you can actually just use your scoring board to create that background. Okay, so again, we're starting the exact same way that we started before with just a tea dye piece of cardstock. Now, you can either put the cardstock in face up or face down, and it's going to make a difference in the background. Now, you have this is a 5x7, so you have a very large area. So if there's part like you don't like the knot here, you just kind of want the background, you can actually go like this and just pick whatever part of the embossing folder that you want. And then all you're gonna do, so this, I'm putting the back face up, and then you can just, this is the Cuttlebug, and I'm just going to run it through the Cuttlebug very quickly and emboss it. Now, I'm bad with remembering which side is the embossed side and which side is the debossed side. So if you guys know, let me know in the comments. I forget. I probably could just look it up, but I seem to always forget. So this is the second technique that we're going to look at. So here is the emboss side, and you're going to do the exact same thing. Now you can go in with vintage photo, you can go in with something that's a little bit darker. Let's go in with the walnut stain this time to show the difference between, this is really, really dark. So you're going to get a big contrast between them. So you have underneath, it's the very, very light, and then on the top, sorry, this light, I thought this light would be better, guys. Let me see if I can, let me see if I kind of do that. Is that better? You can see, there you go. So it has two-tone to it. Now, the other thing that you can do, and this is what I did, and I think I did a little bit too much of it, but with a very, very light hand, you can drag it across. So probably what I would do is first I would take the vintage photo, which is the medium, and kind of go over it, and then I would go back in and drag, do the color dragging. So it kind of gives it, because it's too different between, I think, between the tea dye and the walnut stain. Now you can use aged mahogany, which would give you like a redwood color. So there's a bunch of different browns that you can do this with, but that'll give you the general idea for that one. So that is, and that was this. I just used a different part of the embossing folder for that. Now we're going to do this embossing folder, which again is just lines. It's basically, this will basically be the same thing. Now I'm going to do it the other way. I'm going to put the inked side up. So you'll get a different, if the other one was debossed, this one is embossed, and or vice versa. And again, sorry, I can't remember which is which. Okay. So this one's real, these are really easy to go through. Okay. So we have this is the Paper Studio one, and this is kind of it's kind of, ooh, that made the paper crack. Interesting. So we're going to go over this pretty lightly. So I want to go over this with the vintage photo. Oops. See, that made the paper crack. I think it's because of the way that I put the paper in there, that I put it in across like this and not up and down. So some of the embossing folders will do that. Ooh, that was not great. So this one doesn't give you much of a contrast because of all of the lines. It doesn't give that big of a contrast. But that's always an option if you want. It does have a contrast in real life. You can really see it, and I think this is my favorite for actual wood grain. Now this is when I did the dragging technique, the same one that I did before. So this is using the antique linen and the walnut stain. I think if you use the vintage photo or maybe even tea dye on this, it would look better. And I see this is the one, I put it in this way instead of this way, and this one actually came out better. This was the first one that I did. So that's how you do the embossing on that one. Now, here is the 3D embossing folder, the Alterations by Tim Holtz and Sizzix. This one is really, like I said, really, really cool. There's raised parts. There's like, it makes the whole thing 3D. Now, if I had a larger piece of paper, it would definitely look different. But I'm going to do the opposite of what I did last time. I put the side that I had inked face up. We're going to put it face down. And I think that I want this knotted piece here. So we are going to put this in here, and because this is a thicker embossing folder than the others, we actually don't need the top to it. We're just going to run it through like this, and I'm actually going to run it through off the camera. I wanted to do as much of this on camera as possible for you guys to see actually how this whole process works. So here is the, like I said, again, here's the embossing folder, and here is how it came out. So this side, and then there's this side. This is the white side. So we're actually going to ink up on this, and I just want to ink up some of the vintage photo. And I think between vintage photo and tea dye, there's not that great of a difference. So like some of this is just going to, hopefully this will just kind of give it a little bit more depth. And this is the one that I was really curious about doing. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to take the walnut stain and I'm going to use this brush, which is like just a kind of a straight line. And I'm going to I want to brush it onto some of the indentations and see how that looks. It kind of gives it a cool effect because there are parts that are really, really raised. And it's really picking up more of the color. Just go back in with a little bit more vintage photo and kind of smooth that out. Wow, I think this looks really a lot like wood. This one is there, and then obviously I could go back in a bunch more times and do a bunch more layers. And with Distress Oxides, you might be able to do a little bit more because that kind of sits on top where this kind of sinks into the paper. So I'm really, really liking this one, and I feel like this looks a lot like my floor. I think this actually is now my favorite. This is the winner of my favorite. What do you guys think? So, I mean, I'm not done yet. I still have one more to go, and I'll show you guys all of them at the end. So now we are going to go and work on the stencil from Tim Holtz. Now again, that knot was in there before, and maybe do I not want the knot? Okay, so let's just do a little bit of the knot here, and I'm just going to tape this down. Same thing we've been doing the whole entire time, just inking over it. So this one is I'm going to use Vintage Photo, and this one is stencil is a little bit more delicate. If you can see, I've kind of already, when I was cleaning it off, I kind of bent it a little bit. So I want to just be very careful as I'm doing the stencil. Like this piece bent up. I did not glue it down at the bottom or use any tape. I've just kind of been holding it in place. Okay. And then of course you can go in with some of the walnut stain, or some of it. And give it a little bit more depth. Okay, let's see how this one turned out. so these are just, I know this is kind of a long video, but I kind of did these fairly quickly. And there's the background. There it is. Okay, so let me show you guys the backgrounds real quick. I'm gonna go over them again. Okay, so this one is the winner for me. This is really, and it actually, if you feel it in real life, obviously you can't through the YouTube video, but it has lots of dimension, and I think this would look amazing for doing wood grain. If you were doing a whole big background, you could do the scoring. Now you can do the scoring on any of these that you would like. It doesn't have to just be, you know, just the scoring one, which here's the scoring. Here is the stencil. I like that one too. Here is the Derice embossing folder. I think that's it. Yeah, Derice. And then here is the Paper Studio, the one that I put in the wrong way. And I just did the top of that because this paper is really, really flimsy at this point. So again, that's a good lesson. Be aware of that. It depends the way that you put the paper in. It can crack some of them. Some of the less expensive embossing folders are not as great with some of the paper, obviously. So like, see, this is fraying, so obviously you would have to put it in the other way. But I am liking the way that most of these came out. Not loving what I did with the walnut stain on this one. So I think that at the bottom, I like that. I just don't think that the dragging technique would work as well. You could do that. I think that you just need maybe a softer color, maybe do the vintage photo, dragging it across. I think my clear winners are, you know, actually, I mean, I kind of really like them all. What do you guys think? What was your favorite one? And did you find this helpful to create backgrounds? Giving you guys tips and different things to do, showing you a bunch of different ways to do the same type of background. I'm gonna try to do that. I have a lot of different ideas on things to do. A lot of times I'll watch a video and there's very specific supplies to create it, and that's all they do is just the one way you could do something. But there's always, like the saying goes, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. So there are right here 5 different ways to do a wood background, to do a floor, to do a tree, anything like that. So I think that there are applications that all of these could be used in, but I really do think that my favorite so far is this one, the Tim Holtz 3D embossing folder. So let me know what you guys think. Tell me which one you like the best. Let me know if this type of video is helpful, showing more than one way to, you know, do a background or do whatever technique, because I think that, I know for me, I like when I see people do multiple things in multiple ways, because you know, generally someone is going to have at least one of these supplies to be able to do something like that. So let me know if this is helpful. I know this is a little bit of a longer video, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and you will get notifications, and the little bell, and you'll get notifications on all of my new videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again real soon for another technique video. Bye!